Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back at it. I'm just going to set up quick here. Hope everyone's doing well. So I'm going to do the usual. Just read a bit from the Bible and just see if anybody comes by. ETT, Yahushua King, wanted to talk about hell. And, that's hey, Voynich, what's up, man? Can you just let me know that you can hear me okay and all that? Sound is okay? So I thought we'd go through Job, and then I have a site with a list of Bible verses that relate to hell, and I figure we can go through that. Just talk it through. I just have a couple thoughts after reading Job. Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, man. Bold Counsel, what's up, man? Good to see you. So typically the way I do these, I just read a couple chapters or one chapter from the Bible, and then just give my opinion on it, and that's all it is an opinion, and then leave it open to talk about really anything that people want to talk about. And what's going on in flat Earth. To me, there's so much stuff going on. It's really hard to keep up with, honestly. It's incredible, but it's cool. I think we're getting closer to something definitive. But Zoom Truth, what's up, man? Bro, good to see you. Good to see you, man. So I hope ETT comes by, just because he wanted to talk about Job and the topic of hell, which is a very, very important topic, and in my opinion, misunderstood, or at least I misunderstood it, or I've changed my stance on it in the last few years. But I think going through Job is a good way to kind of be a platform for the discussion. And then, again, I'll leave it open. So he wanted to go to Job 3. And I'm just going to set up the third chapter with a quick sort of run through of the first and second chapter, because, just the setup is important for what Job is experiencing. And I think the cool thing about this is that it's not really going to actually give us that many more answers, to be totally honest, but we can get some comfort by knowing that, an individual named Job, again, if the Bible's true, went through certain things, very, very difficult things, and, managed to overcome. So we won't go through the whole book, but basically in chapter 1, it starts with describing a man named Job. And it describes he's from the land of Uz, and he is one that feared God and, avoided evil and all that kind of stuff. Hey, Mind and Manny, what's up, dude? What's up, bro? We're going to go through Job. I'm just going to do a kind of a bird's eye view of the first couple chapters. And then if you guys have thoughts or insights or other verses that, may help all, me or the whole group, feel free to put it in chat. So we have Job, and then he had an incredible amount of assets. In modern day, we would consider he had a lot of houses, he had a lot of cars, he had a lot of money, land, all that kind of stuff. And then basically it goes through and says that Satan basically appears in front of God. And this already, to me, is something that is we have to sort of understand what's going on here. If this is literally, an entity that is actually, conversing with God and sort of debating him, or is it more figurative? I honestly don't have an answer, but let's go with the fact that this is a literal conversation, between God, the Lord, in this case, the way it's written, and Satan. And so we do learn a little bit about sort of Satan's mindset and just the way that Satan thinks, and we have this mindset to some degree or another, unfortunately, in the world that we live in. But I think it's interesting just reading a little bit of the interaction between God and Satan. So here's in verse 8, Job 1:8. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Does Job fear God for naught? Hast thou not made a hedge about him, and about his house, and about all that he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, curse thee to thy face. And so this is an incredible thing. I mean, like, basically this entity Satan is sort of provoking God, or giving an explanation of why Job has faith, and essentially undermining it, saying that it's rooted in all the things that you've given him. It's not rooted in you yourself. So the dialogue continues. And so essentially in chapter 2, basically he's all of his stuff is basically plundered. Like, everything that he has, in 1 and 2, and then there's just basically like step by step. And then in 15, and the Sibians fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I am only escaped to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there also another, and said, The fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them, and I only escaped. So one after another, things, quote unquote, things are just happening. And all of his, like, quote, his assets are essentially being, like, burned or just destroyed or plundered. And so God is basically systematically shrinking Job's balance sheet from an accounting perspective. And so, very important theological statement, in my opinion. And again, this is not easy to understand, but I think it's a lot easier just for me personally, and if it helps anybody, is that whenever bad things happen to us, God did it. And I think that I was on a hangout recently with Sean G and Fight the Flat Earth and stuff, and we started talking about, obviously Flat Earth and God and all these things came up. And Fight the Flat Earth made an interesting statement, and I'm not trying to say this in a negative way to him, but he mentioned something about how somebody in his family has a disease like multiple sclerosis. Like, how could God do that? And I think that we all have these questions, even if it's not in our own life. We all ask ourselves, how can there be this much evil in the world, but a good God exists? A God, but then a good God. How do we reconcile these things? And I think that this Job chapter, the whole book, but I think that it starts, I wouldn't say answering the questions, but definitely giving us an example in the Bible of a person who experienced incredible calamity, but handled it in a way that is pleasing to God. I still think that it still begs the question as to, like, why did this happen, and what ultimately is God trying to do? What is he trying to, imbue in Job, taking him through these kind of experiences? Because he literally builds him up to be one of the way it's described in verse 3. His substance also was 7,000 sheep and 3,000 camels and 500 yoke of oxen and 500 asses and a very great household, so that this man was the greatest of all the men of the East. So he was like, he was extremely wealthy. And then God literally one after the other just started, like, plundering everything. And so again, I have to be careful when I tell people this, because I'm not trying to make it sound like I know more, or like I'm pretending to know why God is doing this. But I hope for all of us, we can understand through Flat Earth and other things that if God exists, he is the author of good and evil. So God is doing all these things. It was Satan that provoked the conversation, but ultimately it is God that came up with all these different scenarios that took all of Job's goods away. And then Job puts it very, very clearly in 21, in Job 1:21, and said, Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And so that's a very, very sort of common saying that we've heard, and it's in music and Christian music and all that. But Job very, very much understood, even though what he was going through was incredibly difficult, that First off, God gave him all those things that I just listed, the sheep and the camels and the oxen, but he also has taken away. And so, again, I only say this as a comfort for people because it's been a major encouragement to me. And this is I guess my small amount of testimony I'm going to add to this, the way I interpret Job chapter 2 and chapter 3, which we'll go through, is that to me, hell is like a condition. To me, hell would actually be going through things and we don't know why. And not so much that we don't know why, we really have no idea. Like, it's not even close. Like, we literally have no idea. We don't think God exists. And throughout, I would say, a majority of my life, I was like a Christian in the sense that I was reading the Bible and going to church and stuff. But I'll be totally honest, I don't think I genuinely like truly thought God exists. And it's not that I was like being a bad person or I was like looking for excuses to like do whatever I want. In my mind, I still didn't really think that like there was some boogeyman spirit out there who made all this. You know, I just went to church. I tried to like do the right thing and all that kind of stuff. But now with flat earth and with like the mark of the beast and all these other things, like when I look up, I actually like, I now have to come to the reality that there is very, very likely something out there, you know? And like, now it's like, if that is the case, because like, for me, it's a little bit easier to kind of visualize that or think about that, even wrap my head slightly around that. I know that all of the things that I don't like about my life or I see in the world, God is doing it, you know, and in particular, the deceptions going on worldwide at the economic level, at the, you know, religious level, the scientific level with the ball earth deception and all that. It's very easy now for me to say that God has to do that because nobody else could orchestrate stuff like that. And then, but even on the smaller, like quote, smaller level in our own life, the book of Job reminds us that God does these things, you know, and I've done videos on like investing in the stock market and stuff. And it's like, I've come to a better understanding now that like, if whatever happens to me, like in my career or investments, if it goes up, God did it. And if it goes down, God did it. So I just, again, I'm not saying just go and be reckless and just do whatever, do crazy things, but like I'm more aware just in my own life, and maybe this will help somebody, that God is doing these things. You know, God, if for example, I were to like lose my job tomorrow or all my investments would go to zero or like I would get in a car crash or whatever, all those things were planned, you know, and again, it doesn't make it less painful, but broadly speaking, I think the cool thing about Job, literally like hot off the press, all these things have happened. And then in verse 21, at the end of 21, he's like, the Lord gave and the Lord hath taken away. So he obviously has incredible understanding, because a lot of people go through things throughout human history. And even in my life now, having the Bible to read and, you know, kind of see things in the rearview mirror for a majority of my life, I didn't know why all these things were happening in the world. And with me, I just had no idea. Like I've told stories about my time in corporate America where I just was like stressed all the time. I'm like, why is it like this? Why can't I fit in? You know, why, you know, more and more questions like, and so, you know, this is why I think Job obviously had a very, very personal and intimate relationship with God. And then God gave him this understanding, which I don't think very many people have, but I hope me and others have more of this now that, as Job said, the Lord gave and the Lord taketh away. So I would say, if you remember anything from this lesson, I think we can be of some encouragement that, again, if the God of this Bible is true, that is a fact, not just with Job, but for everybody. The plain truth. What's up, man? End times are past. Oh, man. We can get into that, dude. I think we're on the precipice of a lot of different things. I was watching AMTV before I started this live stream, not to kind of get off track, and I even noticed Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes made a comment beneath, because he's starting to talk about Flat Earth now. This is AMTV, a guy who's very, very mainstream, end times, you know, get your prep kits ready and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, he's talking about the yield curve inverting. He's talking about Flat Earth. He's talking about market manipulations. He's like all this doomsday kind of stuff. And, you know, there's something going on. We don't know when or what the effect will look like exactly, but certainly just purely from a financial perspective, a lot of people are hanging by a thread. And so, like I said, all of this, if the God of this Bible is true, he's orchestrating it. And all we can hope for is that it's for a righteous purpose. And I think that's what Job would say as well with what he goes through. in these chapters. He's like baby AJ. Who's AJ? Zoom Truth. I find the AMTV guy hilarious. Oh, Alex Jones. Sorry, I got it. Yeah, yeah. It's fun. I just find the comments maybe more funnier than the videos because he's talking about all this sort of like doomsday, like, you know, it's all over, but he's like, buy your prep kit, buy Bitcoin, you know, like it's hilarious, like the kind of contradictions. But again, I think God encodes information. Again, if the God of this book is true, he encodes information on the left and the right hand side. And I have no idea who's on the left and the right hand side. And I'm not going to judge whether AMTV Christopher Green is, but I think it's cool that he's bringing out flat earth to his over 500,000 subs, you know. So again, people hopefully won't just take his word for it, but just go into other channels that take it seriously. But I think it's kind of cool just seeing that. But so anyway, summary for chapter 1, God gave Job a lot of things, took it away. And Job, thankfully, God gave him the ability to know that it was God that did it. And so to me, if that were not true and all those things would happen to Job, to me, this is a condition of hell. And that's what I'm trying to get at. If I were to sermonize anything on these 3 chapters, I would say that hell is a condition of people going through things and they don't know why, or they don't know who's doing it. For example, they may not know God exists. And so to me, again, I'm very, very thankful in these days that there is a lot of confusion and evil and all that, but I'm very thankful for things like Flat Earth, the Flat Earth community, the hope that I feel like it has brought me and other people, that God does exist, you know, that he is overseeing not just the things that we don't like in our own life, but at the macro level. And in a weird way, and again, this is not easy for people to digest because we are used to thinking God only being capable of good, is that God is behind it. So like he is actually in control of the evil and turning the dials, as scary as that sounds. But I want people to also, again, this is very easy for me to say, but I'm saying it to myself, that we have to have comfort that God is the one who's handling the dials. It's not like Satan crept into God's office and he's like just jigging around with all the dials and just, you know, like, hey, I'm going to screw with Shirag's life, Mind of God's life. I'm going to screw with Manny tomorrow and, you know, Zoom Truth the next day. That's not what's going on here. There's a discussion, which I think to me is symbolic, between God and Satan. And then God is the one ultimately who is plundering all of Job's goods. And Job acknowledges that, like I said, in 21. So here we go. So now all of his physical things are taken away. And then Satan doubles down. And Satan, and I'm just kind of skipping quickly to chapter 3. And then we can get into a bit of what ETT want to talk about. But we can just kind of go through 3. But there's 2 things in chapter 2 I wanted to highlight. And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yea, and all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. So Satan's like doubling down, saying, all right, no, you just took his stuff. That's why he's not cursed you yet. Now, like, go after his body, his flesh. And so, you know, this, again, to me, we have this in us, unfortunately, but we should, as much as we all can, purge all of this. But we can see Satan is just Satan, you know, like he's literally there just like, just to be annoying, you know, and he's just literally saying ridiculous things and provoking God, and then, you know, just nitpicking. Like Satan in other places is almost described, to me, at least the satanic vibe on earth now is very gossipy. It's like, it's not, you know, kind. It's not humble. It's not asking questions sincerely. It's like Satan's literally just like nitpicking at everything and, you know, provoking God to do these kind of things. And so again, to me, it's figurative. God would do these things anyway, but he's using this dialogue for us to understand, to give us a narrative, and to give Job a narrative in this case. And then, so I thought it was interesting, that's relevant to me in the end times, is that Job 2:9 says, then said his wife unto him, dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. Whoa. So that's an incredible thing. I want people to, again, just, we don't know, again, that we're living in the end times, as Zoom or as the Plain Truth saying, like, we we can't, I can't know, nobody can know unless the mark of the beast is required. But assuming we're living in those days and it's in our lifetime, and to me, it's very, very probable, we could have people very, very close to us, and in this case, Job's wife, say, you know, just curse God and die. And so this is kind of the scary thing about, again, the times that we live in, is that truth will not be well received or loved by everybody, you know, and that's just the sad reality. I mean, Job is described in literally Job chapter 1 as a man that was perfect and upright and one that feared God. And so someone like that is married to a woman who just says, curse God and die. And then he's like, but he said unto her, thou speaketh as one of the foolish women speaketh. What shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. So to me, the thing that was incredible, that Job had understanding, and he displays it twice here, that God is the author of good and evil. And so, you know, again, these times that you know, Voynich just mentioned there, if we're living in these times, in the end times, and the God of this Bible is the one orchestrating all this, he is behind the evil, and he's warning us that the last evil that he is going to, you know, architect is the mark of the beast, and he's warning us to not take it, because he's going to deal with the people that do. And so, again, here, Job is very, very aware that God is behind all this. So all this stuff is happening. So Job has all this calamity, and then chapter 3, to me, you know, I'll read it quickly, and then we can I'll give my couple points, and then I'll leave it open if people want to, you know, discuss other topics or stuff related to this. So Job chapter 3. After this opened Job his mouth and cursed his day, and Job spake and said, let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, there is a man child conceived. Let that day be darkness. Let not God regard it from above, neither let the light shine upon it. Let darkness and the shadow of death stain it. Let a cloud dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, let darkness seize upon it. Let it not be joined unto the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Lo, let that night be solitary. Let no joyful voice come therein. Let them curse it that curse the day, who are ready to raise up their mourning. So just to kind of understand this lament, which makes sense. I mean, he's gone from the highest of places to the lowest, and then it's one thing to lose all your stuff, but now his like health is bad, and he's got boils and all these things on his body, and he's got his wife nagging at him, telling him to curse God and die. Like, this is pretty much as bad as it gets. I could think of just physical slavery added on top of that, like ardent, like or just like being like an indentured servant, and then or being like you know, having like a sexual crime done against you. It's like pretty much everything bad is kind of hitting him almost at once. And so he's basically saying, like, I wish I was never alive. I wish I was never born. And so, you know, I think this type of thing, it is, again, it's an incredible thing that he would go through all this and not curse God. I think that this is very, very evident that he has a very, very direct connection with God, and God is testing him. You know, God obviously gave him an incredible amount of faith, and we're told in the Bible to only judge our worth by the amount of faith God gives us. And then God essentially is pushing him right to the edge, and then seeing, you know, essentially testing him, saying, how far can I push him to get him to like curse me? And Job doesn't, you know, and then, but he doesn't sin. But then now, even in his lament, when he's talking about not wanting to be alive and all that, he's still not sinning. He's doing what any logical, rational person would do if they've gone through this, and he's complaining, you know. And I think it's not wrong to complain. I think it's very, very important, in my opinion, to complain to the right person. And I would highly recommend, again, if you watch any of my stuff in the past, complain only to God. You know, it's like here in this case, we have Job, his wife, telling him to like curse God and die. So who are you going to go complain to? Your wife? Like, it's like God is doing all this. You know, God is in this case turning up the heat in every direction possible, from his body, from his assets, from his people close to him. And he ultimately wants to test us. And in my opinion, this is why I feel those of us who feel we're living in the end times and are aware of this nefarious agenda called the mark of the beast, God is doing that to test us. He wants to see what we're gullible to fall for. Are we going to fall for the government narrative? Are we going to fall for the Big Bang? Are we going to fall for atheism? Are we going to fall for ball earth, bendy water? Are we going to fall for all these different things? Are we going to fall for like the seductive voice of of a loved one, of a wife or whatever? Like what would it take for us to curse God? And you, by taking the mark of the beast, again, if it's implemented the way the Bible says, is the ultimate way the Bible says that we're cursing God, and God hates us too. And so this is all, to me, that and other things on our day-to-day is a test. And, just like Job, he was given incredible faith and God stretched him to an incredible degree. But thankfully to me, he was able to persevere because he was very, very aware that was God and him interacting directly. The mark of the beast is in the past. No, it can't be. Plain truth, because the Bible says there is a punishment for those who've taken it, and it's executed by the angels. So that's not true. Until we see UFOs coming and zapping people who've taken it, it's not here. And no system has been implemented worldwide that has restricted people from buying and selling ever. And that's only possible now, in the times that we live in. It's interesting too, from an economic perspective, plain truth, the Bible says rich and poor. So there's going to be essentially two economic classes, in the end times. And again, we see that happening now. You can watch really even mainstream financial commentary talking about the middle class being left behind, and being not benefiting from, the financial system, the economic system worldwide. And so it's mainstream news that there is only a rich and a poor. And it pretty much has to be, because the way things work now is that if you don't have money or access to loans, proximity to capital, you can't really like start businesses or take risks or make money. And so that just will make the rich richer and the poor poorer just by the system itself. It's like a lot of people have great ideas, but if they don't have the money or the ingenuity to like, or the money and the capital to like get that idea out there and start a business from it, somebody else will hire you, take that idea and make money from it. And that's what we see happening. Yeah, Zoom truth. I mean, you and a lot of people are living, it's tough, man. I just honestly, I can't imagine, for me personally, being able to like travel anymore that much, like flying, when I've had full-time jobs, I just don't travel. And so all this stuff with the airlines, this Boeing crash and all that, that's just a way for the mainstream news to like justify people flying less, because I am, and I think a lot of people are. And then also this college admissions scam is just a way to justify the fact that less people are going to college because it's expensive. And so their numbers are down. And so what God does is he just uses these fake stories to explain why things are slowing down. And then the government shutdown, whether that's real or not, you hear people talk about that narrative. That is the narrative for why the end of last year's retail sales numbers were bad. It's like one government shutdown will cause all this drop in retail purchases. It's like that's absurd. And so again, God is doing this. He needs a narrative, and all this tariff stuff and all that stuff. They're just stories. Like, how many times have we heard about a trade deal from China and US? Like, it's like, no, next month will be the deal. No, next month, all that. So pretty much all these stories are just talking points for the financial pundits to like talk about everything except for the fact that Americans are broke. That is the only thing that's going on. I mean, I was in a pretty vibrant part of Houston last night, Friday night. I mean, it's just not many people out, and I'm not saying there was nobody, but it's just, you can sense that people are not spending as much, it's just a fact. Like I am. And I would say, again, I'm in a much better position financially than a lot of people. And so, yeah, I mean, plain truth, here's the deal with the mark of the beast. And I catch people on even atheists with this too. And I was in a hangout with like Reds and Sean Hufford and all those guys. And like, I was like, hey, if the mark of the beast were to come out, would you take it? And a lot of them, I don't think they would even take it. Like they were like, no, the government can't, exert that much influence on us and it'll never happen and all that. So even the development itself, like, people are aware that, it's not going to be an easy thing to implement. And so to me, that's not going to get easier over time. That's why, again, I think that it has to happen relatively soon, because it's not like year after year, people are getting more and more trust from the government and the narrative of the mainstream corporate media. Like I was just saying, because the financial deception is now mainstream, and it's like, people know that the stock markets are manipulated. Like that's not even a conspiracy theory anymore. That's just common knowledge with everybody, even a conspiracy theorist or not. And so it's just getting more and more obvious. Flat Earth is another example that we've just literally been lied to by almost everything. We've literally, a lot of people have gone $250,000 in debt, potentially more if they've gone to like graduate degrees and all that, to essentially be lied to about God, obviously, in the very least, but other things that are just not true technically. And then that's one thing. Let's just say you were lied to, but it helped you get a job. But a lot of people have all that debt and they just can't get a job, and so this student loan bubble is about to pop as well. And so purely from a financial perspective, we know that a significant percentage of people in the world right now, are on the brink of financial collapse, and that's a lot of companies are failing and they're given handouts from the central bank. So how much worse would the day-to-day person be if they're not being spoon-fed money from a central bank? So something's happening. Again, I'm trying to take my foot off the gas and not pretend like this is me doing it. Like Job experienced, God is doing this. The God of this Bible would be the one architecting it if it comes out and it's forced. And again, just don't take it, because like Job is experiencing, God is testing Job and I feel all of God's children to see what we'll fall for. What would it take for God to do to us to get us to curse him, and to not want to be around him. And so, may we not be gullible, certainly not with the mark of the beast. It's very, very obvious. Okay. Sorry, back to this. So Job is basically like, I really wish I was never here. I'm on, I'll go to 9. Let the stars of the twilight thereof be dark. Let it look for light, but have none. Neither let it see the dawning of the day, because it shut not up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hid sorrow from my eyes. So he's like, man, I just wish I was never here. All this stuff that I've gone through, it's just, I really wish I never seen it at all. Yeah, Zoom, you're right, man. Water cannot curve. Non sequitur is supposed to do a flat water debunk video, so there's going to be some comedy later tonight on that channel. Water cannot form an arc. That's like literally ridiculous. I can't believe I ever fell for that. That's hilarious. But okay, so why died I not from the womb? Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? That's an amazing thing. It's amazing to think that these, and I'm almost like envious of people like Job and others, because like they know that there's a quote unquote ghost. They call it a ghost or a soul, a spirit in them. Why did I not give up the ghost when I came out of the belly? Like he's basically saying, why didn't I just like kill myself like when I was like a baby? But to me, the most important thing that I think, again, Job has insight into things that not everybody would. Because again, he was described as perfect and somebody that feared God and eschewed evil. But he knew that there was a supernatural, he knew that there was something in him that lived on after his physical body died. And to me, that's an incredible thing. Like if we take comfort in just that being a possibility for us, I think that's a beautiful thing. Like everybody, will go through things, and, some people go through things that I'm like, I wouldn't even touch that with like 1,000-foot pole. You know what I mean? Like credit to them, but to some extent, I think it's okay for us to complain like Job does here. And to some extent, even more, because again, I'm not trying to throw Job under the bus, but a lot of us have not owned the amount of things that Job had. Like, we didn't even experience anything like what he's owned. So he's kind of tasted the mountaintop and then, you know, the valley. But, you know, a lot of people on earth right now have gone through things that are potentially even way, way worse than this. And they haven't had the comfort knowing that God did it, and then that there is a spirit inside of them that will live on. And so to me, again, it's not easy to know exactly why God is doing this. That my just superficial, scratching the surface guess is that he's pushing Job as far as he can before he will not curse him, you know, and that for whatever God's reason, that's something that's pleasing to God to do that. And to me, I certainly don't have the answer as to why. Why did the knees prevent me, or why the breast that I should suck? For now, should I have lain still and been quiet, I should have slept, then I had been at rest. With kings and counselors of the earth, which built desolate places for themselves, or with princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver, or as an hidden untimely birth I had not been, as infants which never saw light. He wished he was stillborn. Like, he wishes that he was dead, you know. And this to me is again, it's not wrong to complain, in my opinion. Obviously, Job is doing this in a righteous way. He's like kind of lamenting. He's not saying, you know, F God, F this, F that. He's just saying, like, man, I really wish I was never born, you know, because like I've been through so much and I'm like grieving. There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary be at rest. So to me, he knows things about the spirit world that not everybody does. And I have a feeling he's saying this, but he's also being comforted, knowing that this world does exist out there where, like he said, that the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary be at rest. And so he's taking comfort in his own words. There the prisoners rest together. They hear not the voice of the oppressor. So in my opinion, we hope for this day, you know, and we don't ever want to be the oppressor in this story. But here Job saying that in verse 18, there the prisoners rest together and they hear not the voice of the oppressor. So the spirit world is not subject to the control of the oppressors here on earth. And we should definitely take comfort in that. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from the master. Again, there's no like master-slave relationship. Again, we should be comforted by that, because Jesus says in many, many places that for somebody to want to be God like he is, he's the best representation of the Most High in human form, the perfect representation of the Most High in human form, that he actually came to serve, not to be served. And so this is again, in my opinion, this is before, remember, this is like early, this is an earlier scripture in the Bible. So this is pre-Jesus, and he's saying things, spiritual truths that are kind of clarified through Jesus's life and his ministry. But he's saying the small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. And so there is no master-slave relationship. You know, to me, in the kingdom of heaven, everybody would be a servant, because only God is only capable of serving. He is not capable of taking, borrowing, stealing. Everything is his. So God, by definition, to me, is only capable of serving. And so everyone that is in harmony with him is also serving. And so essentially there's only servants and there's no master, except for the Most High. He's the master. Hey, Mies Kang, what's up, man? Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but I changed the time too. I pushed it a little bit. I did a little bit earlier, but good to see you, man. Do animals have souls? The plain truth, dude, I have no idea. If you have verses or have some insight into that, I'd be very curious to know. We do know that they operate and they only do what God says. So if he controls them through a quote unquote soul or another way, to me, God is everything in the universe obeys his commands. Everything, like a human, a stone, this table. If God wants to turn this table into a human, he just says, turn it into a human, you know? So I don't know if it requires a soul for an animal to be under that type of, you know, control, but, you know, I'm not sure. I think the thing that, I'm getting at maybe with this passage is that Job is being comforted that he has this thing called a ghost or a soul. And I'll be totally honest, I don't think that I've ever thought of that in my own life for many, many years. And I've been reading the Bible for, you know, like 20 some years now. And I'm not saying I'm soulless like Satan or anything like that. But I've never thought about that, about the moment a person dies, I die, and then something is released. It's hard for me to really wrap my head around that. And to be totally honest, we're not encouraged to think that way in the church. We're not encouraged to think that way ever. But to me, if you again get any sense, the vibe from my channel is like, it's very comforting to think about that, because to me, again, like hell is just hell because people go through things and they don't know why, and those experiences are not redeemed. So to me, that's hell. Like it would be hell. Sorry, I have to mention this because it's a very important point related to the end times, is that what I think would be hell is all the things and the deception going on in the world, not just the little bit that I've experienced, knock on wood, I don't want more of it, but the deception and the ball earth and just corporate slavery and all that. People have gone through a lot more, so I'm not here for a pity party. But to me, it would be hell if all the people on earth right now, all the truthers and otherwise all the people wanting to be righteous, went through all this stuff, but there was no reason for it. It's just like, righteousness took a dip, a real low point, and then it just kind of something else happens down the road. But there was no purpose for like this chunk of deception that's happening, in my opinion, very blatantly worldwide. Financial deception, ball earth deception, religious deception everywhere. I mean, there's like our food is like deceit. Our food is not real. Our air is disgusting. Like, I mean, I don't even know where to begin and end. But we're being kind of pillaged from every single angle, like Job was in this book. To me, that would be hell if we all went through this, not just me, but everybody collectively, and there was no reason for it. And so that to me is very, very scary. It scares me more if the mark of the beast does not come out in our lifetime, because then to me, again, it doesn't necessarily mean the Bible's not true, because it could be fulfilled down the road. But it's scary to think that all this evil really is just kind of serves no real purpose. Like it's just sort of like there, and just chaos. Like everybody on TV is lying about the financial world. We have NASA giving us fake images. We have like just atheists coming at us saying that we're stupid because we think that God set the earth in 3 space and he hangs it there. We're stupid for not thinking that we're like slinging through space and flying through space. Like that's what we're fed, from all these different angles. And we're the ones that are kind of crazy. And so to me, in that would be a form of hell, or actually like literal hell, because our brains and minds have been fondled for our whole life, and really for no reason, and it served absolutely no purpose. Again, here in this interaction, I feel Job is being pushed by God to the edge, and then that displeases God for Job to be quote unquote stretched to his limit, but not curse God. And so to me, somebody like Job, who is obviously very, very close to God, and he would be given potentially more insight into the Most High after this. This is just my opinion. This is off the record. But to me, God does these things, tests certain spirits like Job, and then you get closer and closer to God. And I'm not saying it's like a game or like something God does carelessly or recklessly. One would have to think, if he makes an earth like this one, puts people on it and starts doing things, he wouldn't start doing things willy-nilly, And again, I've been guilty of thinking that a lot of this is just willy-nilly and random and stupid and serving no purpose. But I'm trying to encourage myself and others who come by my channel to like be encouraged by the fact that this amount of evil and deception that's happening from one end of the earth to another cannot be for anything but a righteous purpose from God, because he would not do things like this carelessly. So I'm almost done here. I'll just carry on. So Job is saying that there is no master servant in this spirit world that he was in before he entered his mother's womb, that he's talking about in verse 10. So verse 20, wherefore is light given to him that is in misery, and life unto the bitter in soul. Now he's asking, like, why? Why are we here? What are we? And this to me is an amazingly, yeah, dude, plain truth. The Bible with the mark of the beast is absolutely not ambiguous. And in my opinion, it's not ambiguous about flat earth. It's very, very clear. And it's very, very clear that Jesus Christ is a black man. So just to reiterate, Job, just while we're here, Job 30:30 reads, my skin is black upon me and my bones are burned with heat. And so these are all things that, you know, if I consider them treasures, I'm very, very thankful that I know or believe in a few of the things, that I have hope that this deception and evil is for a purpose, for the mark of the beast. But then beyond that, in Book of Revelation, it describes a kingdom of heaven being established, and it sounds like a glorious thing, you know, and that's, to me, these are all treasures. And so it is very, very clear about the mark of the beast as being a very, very important prophecy. And in my opinion, really the only thing that makes sense to explain why all these things are happening in the world. Flat earth and the mark of the beast to me are intrinsically related, because the only way the mark of the beast could even get developed is atheism being, you know, the prominent worldview mindset on earth. And so ball earth and atheism to me go hand in hand. And that's the precursor to the mark of the beast. And yeah, no, we can discuss anytime, plain truth, if you're up for it. You know, I can just finish this off if you want to join now, or talk another time. You know, I'm very, very open, man. I definitely you know, enjoy talking to other flat earthers, because it's becoming increasingly difficult for me to talk to ball earthers, because they say such ridiculous things, and it's becoming kind of extreme in my opinion. But you know, I do agree that there is no literal hell, and I'll talk about that here. And that's kind of what I was trying to sort of allude to. And I think that's the reason why ETT wanted to talk about Job in particular, is that he's describing a state, a condition. That's what hell is. And so Job here quite literally is going through hell, because he's weighing his life against death, you know, and viewing death as a relief from his quote unquote hell. But I'll just wrap up Job 3. Literally, he says in 21, which long for death, but it cometh not, and dig for it more than for hidden treasures. So Job's like, I hate to laugh, like this is all in the past, but he's literally saying, like, people are looking for death more than treasures. And I think in many ways we're living in those times, because we know that treasures won't do anything. Like if I were to win the lottery today, I mean, what could I do with that money? Like, I know that the dollar is about to crash at some point. Everybody knows it. Like, the Bible predicts famine for America. If it's Mystery Babylon, it's going to predict chaos, and then it's going to predict missiles. So like, what am I going to do with that money? I guess if I got it, I could share it with people and be a blessing in that way, which would be great. But generally speaking, like broadly speaking, like Job is saying here, like they're in the lament that he's going through right now, he's describing longing for death more than, you know, treasures. And so he's at the end of his rope, quite literally, which rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave. Why is light given to a man whose way is hid and whom God hath hedged in? This is, to me, I wanted to highlight this Job 3:23. If you guys can remember this verse and go back to it, and we can you know, discuss it. I think it's just a powerful thing. I read it in a few different translations, but Job 3:23, why is light given to a man whose way is hid and in whom God had hedged in? And so in other translations, it says, whom God hath encompassed, or like given trouble from all angles. And so Job is kind of saying, like, why are we here and we don't know where we're going, you know? And he's like, we don't know like our direction, you know, a lot of times. And so I think that this to me is an incredible statement from a person, again, who at the beginning of this book is described as perfect and a person who's close to God. He's being very, very real here. He's like, why are we here? You know, like we don't know where we're going. And not only that, God hath hedged in, and in other translations that reads like God's like encompassing us with trouble, you know? And so to me, a very, very incredible thing. I think if I were to sermonize this a little bit more too, is like beyond just taking Job to his limits, he's bringing Job to a place of incredible humility where Job now is literally saying, groaning, like yearning for like for answers. Like, why am I here? You know, like if I'm just in pain, my wife's after me, you know, just like all my stuff's taken away, all my family has been destroyed. Why am I here? You know, and I think that this is an incredibly humble place. You know, may God bring us to this place without that much suffering. But again, to me, I'm not saying Job wasn't humble before this, but there is absolutely no doubt that he is in a very, very broken place. And to me, this is an incredible thing about the God of this Bible. And this is why the God of this Bible is incredibly peculiar, is that he likes things that are not obvious and would seem very strange, especially with the way the world that we live in right now, which will, you know, exalt virtues of like money, wealth, you know, sexual pleasures, physical pleasures, having like a large network of people, being proud of all the things that we've accomplished. These are all the things that this society exalts. And the God of the Bible says that anybody who's a friend of the world, and I have a feeling even in a time that was much less evil than now, is an enemy of God, because God is actually he likes other things. I can't tell you the exact things, but it's very, very clear that he likes things that go against a lot of the ways of this world, you know, and Job is at the lowest state. He's literally poor. Like he is poor financially, and his health has been taken away. And so, you know, this is just an incredible sigh, you know, that he's literally saying here in 24, for my sighing cometh before I eat, and my roarings are poured out like the waters. For the thing which I greatly feared is come upon me, and that which I was afraid of is come unto me. So God clearly, again, it knows that, you know, he's given Job a lot. And obviously, like any normal person, he's worried that those things will be taken away. And so, you know, God did it. And so in 26, I was not in safety, neither had I rest, neither was I quiet, yet trouble came. So this to me is an incredible thing. I'll leave it open just in case we need to reference that. But to me, a lot of parallels to Job's experience here with, hey, Skyfly Bree, what's up, man? Yeah, plain truth. I mean, everybody can have an opinion on certain things. I would just say fundamentally what I won't let people get away with in the day that we live in now, with all the things that are coming out in our mainstream, is that fundamentally, if the government forces us to do anything, even if it's not necessarily even the mark of the beast, that is not necessary. That's evil. You know, let's just say it's not even related to finances and stuff. Let's just say they arbitrarily want us to, like, you know, have a tattoo on our bicep. They just say it. We just feel like it. We want you to do it. Quote unquote safety. Has nothing to do with money. We just need you to come and tag you and brandish you with a number in your arm, just for whatever, you know. That to me, if a person would have to be a degenerate to do that, and even if it requires, you know, losing your life, much less being forced to take something in your hand to access your own money to buy and sell in a system that's satanic. So, you know, there's no coming back from that. And I have no pity for people if it happens and they take it and God destroys them. I mean, we don't, and me as well. If I take it and I, you know, get destroyed, I mean, I deserve that. That is just a faithless, degenerate person that would do that, even if the Bible didn't say it. That's why I know that this is an incredible time, because you don't even need the Bible to tell you that that's stupid, because everything about that we're being told, not just things about the shape of the earth, which is a big thing, are lies. You know, we're literally being taught told gibberish, like from the news and from the government and from everybody, you know, from a centralized agency. And so, again, just I can't tell you if it's going to happen when. At this point, I don't even wish that it happens anymore. I'm waiting and seeing like everybody else. But the God of this Bible makes it very, very clear that a person who takes that, he is against them. He hates them, and he's going to destroy them personally. And we have not had an experience like that in human history, where that's been the case. And so, to me, it has to be in the future if it manifests, and in my opinion, in the next 5 years. Mies Kang's like, better to starve than take the mark. Yeah. So what happens if they are starving? What are they supposed to do? So Zoom, this is where I think, you know, this stuff that Job went through. And again, I'm not saying this is easy to digest, but it's something I've thought about, just my own personal journey, is that I'm more aware now of the fact that certain people think about God fundamentally, and then think of an afterlife, and think that what they're going through is not just so that they could be like dust on the ground, you know? And I think that those people, and I pray that obviously we hope that we're in that number, and God increases that number, wakes more and more people up, this quote, valley of the dry bones, and God, you know, gives us more and more truth. But we are becoming aware of the fact that God exists, but not just that the God of this Bible exists, and there's things that he wants his children to do, and there's other things that he doesn't want us to do. And so, you know, that to me is becoming more and more obvious who are the potential candidates on one side. And my recommendation is not just people who open up the Bible and read it on live streams, don't take their word for it, but to me, it's like I was on a hangout earlier with like some ballers and stuff, and like they're talking about the Big Bang and all this stuff. Like, to me, like, we have to interact with people like that. But to me, atheism is like becoming kind of comedy, because again, God is waking us up that he exists. You know, I think the only debate now is really which God, you know, like which of these gods that are presented in these different texts exist, or is it none of them? And then there's another one that's sitting on top of all those other gods. And so that's what's that to me is what's left now. You know, there's no real debate about God's existence to me. It's not even necessarily just the flat earth, but that helps a lot. But again, I don't know how this works. How does Job or anybody, or even Jesus Christ, we call him Yahushua, die, and a spirit or soul leaves his body? First of all, what is that? Like, as a substance, what does that represent? How is it impacted by the things that we do on earth? And where does it go? Like, what is that thing? You know, and we don't know, you know, and I think that, you know, as much as I read Job and some of the things that he went through, we don't know a lot of things. And I think that that's okay. And I think a lot of the stuff on the Ball Earth side, again, I am throwing them under the bus, and I guess I'm okay with it, but like, they have an answer for everything. Like, and the answers are ridiculous. You know, it's like, it's okay for us to say, I don't know things. You know, we don't know the exact specifics of hell, because we don't even know if we have a spirit in us, and who, and what that is, and where it goes and stuff. And what's the purpose of all this conditioning and all that kind of stuff. We don't have the answers for any of this stuff. But what God does tell us very, very clearly, in my opinion, in the Bible, is that the earth is flat, and the mark of the beast is a real thing. You know, it's a something that the God of this Bible has prophesied. And again, if we can count on the words of any of the other books in the Bible, we would need that to manifest as well. And God advises his children to not take it. Only a faithless degenerate would take that, and God will deal with them directly. Shivite Jagnarth, what's up, man? Bro, good to see you. Big up. Yeah, Mies Kang, dude. I was just reading your post. Sorry, I'm a bit behind. I know God exists. I do not know if I could pass a tough test. Yeah, Zoom. I think that, you know, man, I just thinking about the things that Jesus went through now that I can think more that it's real and it's not just stories that I was reading in the past, like, how did he deal with that? Like, he just dealt with a bunch of like simpletons, and he had to like debate people all the time. And I'm sitting in flat earth ball earth debates, and I'm not even like anywhere near obviously of the level of God, and I'm getting irritated by them. And I'm like, how did Jesus put up with this and then go through what he did and die a grisly death like that? Like, how does somebody go through that and not curse God, you know, and be like, what did you just do? Like, you put me through this. I'm talking to all these morons over here about how they don't like that I'm healing people on a Sunday or Saturday or whatever the Sabbath is. Like, you've surrounded me by some of the like biggest degenerates, and not just that, then you let them manhandle me and kill me. Like, we're dealing with very, very amazing spirits, but most amazing is the spirit of all those spirits. And so we just pray again, and I pray that we can learn more. You know, we may not ever get to the level of Job or this kind of faith, but you know, Zoom Truth, there's no doubt you've persevered just from the what I've seen with your channel. I mean, God will give us things proportional to what revelation he's given us. So we just have to behave in a manner consistent with that. And I'm speaking to myself heavily with that, but that's all we're required to do. And it's okay. You know, that again, the God of this Bible is very peculiar. He will, I suspect he'll look at our life, and if this were to be the case, that he would found pleasure in things that we would have forgot, you know, or just deemed trivial. And so, and the things that we would have thought were highlights, you know, like we won a debate, or we came up with this great point, or we were particularly articulate in this way. And God, I mean, he'd just be like, it's not, I'm not saying he wouldn't appreciate those things, but I have a feeling he is looking at different metrics than maybe we are. So, the Mies Kang said something that I thought it was cool. A test like that is easy. It's day-to-day living that's the tough part. One singular test, take more. Yeah, and that to me is an incredibly powerful statement. It's true. You know, it's like the day-to-day sufferings that people have gone through in human history. I just don't know how people stomach that. You know, I think it's an incredible thing. My life is not that bad right now, and I'm still like Job in a lot of these verses. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what's my purpose here? This is ridiculous. You know, like, I wish that I was, you know, like he said, you know, with kings and princes, and you know, in a realm where there is no servant master, and I don't hear the voice of the oppressor, and not even necessarily even that extreme. It's just you're in the spirit world where you're free. You know, we are back closer to the person that created us, and that's the only way that we can have any idea, any sense of purpose, any sense of continuity, any sense of clarity, is to be reconnected with the entity that had the creative ability to create all of us. And so, you know, to me, Job is lamenting about things that people go through right now, you know, and in my opinion, will continue to go through for a while, unfortunately, but hopefully it's not forever. Yeah, the Mies Kang, man, that's a powerful statement. You know, that's really, to me, and I posted a video recently for those like more into the math and statistics. It doesn't make statistical sense to take the mark of the beast, because if that were to ever happen, what is that point going forward going to look like? I mean, you're surrounded by people who are obviously degenerates because they'll just do whatever the government says. And we know pretty much everything the government says is a lie. Like, literally, it's not like Russian Vids was on Non Sequitur recently, and I was like kind of rumpusing the chat, but I was like, the stuff he says is not conspiracy anymore. And credit to him for bringing it out years ago. Like, he was way ahead of the curve. But they're not conspiracies anymore. You know, we are run by psychopaths. So like, we know that. Like, it's just obvious. We have people telling us that the earth created out of a spontaneous cosmic burp. And, you know, the earth is just flinging through space, and there's no worries, you know, just enjoy the ride. you know, shut up and enjoy the ride. You know, that's what they're telling us, like, with a straight face, you know, and like atheism is like, is absolutely for the degenerate and the mindless and the moronic, and it's being sold to us like it's the smartest thing, like the most brilliant thing ever, you know. And it's like they're getting caught in their own lies, because you can't hide lies for forever, because it's just common sense. Like if the lies involve stealing money and other things, you can only steal for so long until we don't have anything left. Like it's not one of those things like Ball Earth could have actually stayed Ball Earth forever if God really wanted to, like, never allow us to ask a question, you know, or give us the tools and cameras that we have now to investigate on our own. But when it's financial and things that affect us on a day-to-day basis, I mean, those lies can't last forever, you know, because again, there'll be just a lot of people who don't have money and can't survive. And so to me, it's obvious, you know, that there's a deception going on worldwide, and it's very, very evident in, you know, the statistics, but also just what's going on worldwide. And there's wars happening everywhere, and no one knows why, and all that kind of stuff. So again, we know, or we have to, it's reasonable now in many ways to have faith that God is behind it. Tima, can you please notify us when you go? Yeah, sorry, man. Live on debates on other channels. Yeah, sorry. I'll try and be better about that. Like, I try and just kind of go in those chats a bit more vocal, because I feel like the flat Earth is hit a plateau, and it needs a new chief technical officer, in my opinion. The people have been good. Credit to all the people in there, but there's a new level of fervor and urgency to solve this debate in a rigorous way, and not just be theatrics like gas pressure without a container and all that kind of stuff. Like, it served its purpose. It has pricked the bubble. It has shaken the foundation of Ball Earth. But now we want to measure, have a way for everybody to measure for themselves the lack of curvature. And so to me, if Globebusters was really Globebusters, or all these people at the top really did have money and one test, I mean, this should have been solved a long time ago. In my opinion, it may stay ambiguous, because if the Earth is proven to be flat in a rigorous way, to me, there would be chaos. Like, why would people go to school? Like, why would a reasonable person, you would go to school, but it would just be like a joke, you know, like you'd pretty much be able to rip up a lot of the textbooks, or a lot of pages out of textbooks. And we would all kind of ask, in many ways, what Job asks here, why are we here? You know, what's our purpose here? Certainly not to simply just burn up a lot of books and then quote unquote start from scratch, which we really can't do anyway, fundamentally, because our economies are so driven by commerce, like retail spending and real estate and medicine. You know, it's just not something, in my opinion, that can be sustained unless we go back to first principles, like living off the land and stuff like that. Yeah, the Mies Kang, dude, it's getting to the point where, like, it's like, it makes me cringe, you know. And the Mies Kang makes a great point. He's like, I give the atheist ballers credit for how unbelievably skilled they are at mental gymnastics. These people will literally argue 2 + 2 = 5 with a passion. Dude, I was on a call, a private Discord conversation with Bob the Science Guy, and he took me to like the skyvector.com site, and he literally tried to tell me that a plane would fly from 2 points on a sphere in a straight line. And I was like, ooh. I literally told him, like, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that to me. Like, don't do this. Like, that's a bad idea to try and pull something like that. And I told him, like, because he was trying to use the rule of, like, the interior angles of a triangle need to sum to 180 degrees, but that doesn't apply to 3 points on a sphere. And then he was trying to say that those points represent a triangle in two-dimensional space. And I was just like, whoa. And, you know, he claims to be some kind of pilot or whatever, but the site that he took me to was proving a flat Earth because it just had angle and distance that the plane was going to travel. And I'm like, bro, if this was really a sphere, you would have two orientations, because it's in, again, three-dimensional space. If you imagine these, to have a vector in 3 space, you need obviously a magnitude, but you would need 2 angles in spherical coordinate systems to direct where the plane is going to go. But this site just had an angle and a magnitude. And so it made sense. It shot the plane at an angle, and then depending on the wind, it would kind of bring it back. And so the angle was like slightly shifted, you know, depending on the wind pattern. But I'm like, dude, this site you brought me to is like a flat earth proof. Like, and it was just, I was like, dude, these guys are getting out of control, man. And all that stuff. It's sad, dude. Honestly, it's really, really sad. Like what's going on, like the number of lies that they're just having to say over and over and over again, you know, it's just really disturbing. Like they're coming on chats now, putting like water levels like way up to here, you know, and being like, oh, there's the curve. How do you explain that? Look at all the water and all that. And I'm like, dude, this just sounds real crazy now. Like, I think there's going to be a point fairly soon where I don't even think flat earthers will want ball earthers around, you know, because there's enough expertise, more than enough expertise on the flat earth side. And there probably has been for a long time. But to me, there just hasn't been enough coordinated effort put forward. And again, if left unobstructed, you know, if God allows it, we would figure it out. But again, I don't know how that would work out, because again, if the entire Earth or a lot of the people on Earth have the fervor that we have and it's magnified, let's just say all of our faith in flat Earth is like here, but then there's like a drone test or something that's just like absolutely, you cannot argue it unless you're just totally brain dead. All of our collective faith in the flat Earth would go up, even if you already are a flat earther. And then to me, there would be chaos overnight, because all the structures in our world right now revolve around a spinning ball Earth, which is an atheist doctrine. Our entire world right now is atheist, has atheistic underpinnings, even if it comes in the guise of religion. Can you upload a video on how you think GPS works in a flat Earth? Yeah, Manny, I don't know a lot about it, but to me, it's just it's not something that's coming from the sky, from the satellites. It's just things related to it's things relative to things here on Earth, whether you call them like certain towers or whatever. Ultimately, there are reference points on Earth that a certain device can communicate with and get an understanding of where it is. And you know, even like the thing that I brought up in a debate recently, military drones need, you know, multiple frequencies to be able to get to like centimeter level accuracy. And to me, that wouldn't be the case if we had satellites, because when you have a lot of satellites in the sky, you wouldn't need to have necessarily a very, very sophisticated drone with multiple frequency to do that, because you would have a diversity of signals from the satellites. You know, you would, like, the drone would be positioned here, and then let's say there was a cluster, an array of satellites above. All those satellites give you more and more confidence in that position everywhere, you know, wherever. Yeah, MC Tune, wherever. I mean, if these satellites are truly sort of orbiting, you know, and you know, able to, you know, produce a signal and receive one, and no one would think that it would need the Earth in order to do that. It's able to reach all parts of the Earth equally. It wouldn't make sense, you know, that you would have drones that would need these kind of things to be that accurate, you know, and even the off the shelf ones would be much more accurate, in my opinion. But that's just that's my stance. I can't say that I've done, you know, research on it, but to me it just seems logical from like a resolution perspective that you know, it's just like in communication systems, if you have like multiple antennas, which is like a new technology that's being utilized in you know, in phones and different communication systems, basically you have options. You could either send the same signal 4 times and try and like give the receiver 4 times as much chance of receiving it accurately, or you can send 4 independent data streams along the 4 channels and then increase your bandwidth. And so fundamentally, if you have like thousands of satellites on Earth, around Earth, and your what they would call in that language, your diversity multiplexing gain is huge, because you have just this array of points of reference. And then so to me, the precision as well would be like, of anything that had access to those satellites would be incredible. No, they have to be bidirectional, MC2, and they have to be. For them to do really anything, they have to be able to receive, if they exist. Obviously, I don't believe that they exist, but there would be no reason why that maybe not each one, but some of them would be able to receive a signal as well. If you want to start a discussion, I'm only available for the next half hour or so. Yeah, sorry, is that Plain Truth? Yeah, you can join if you want, man. I can send you the link. Yeah, MC Tune, I mean, we can, there's a lot of things that people can look up. There's a lot of documents and all that, and they're just like papers. And I think now I'm getting to the point where if this were to be like getting serious, like a drone that is like a military grade can solve this debate very, very quickly. And so I think that, I believe it's spiritual why that's happening, because it would be easy, you know, and the leadership in the flat earth community, if they were truly like, you know, technically capable, they would have been able to come up with this a long time ago. A simple test that can be done around the world to show the lack of curvature. And so, yeah, I mean, the deception obviously would have to be sophisticated, not just with satellites, but with a lot of other things. And so I'm at the point now where reading papers and all that, again, for people who are flat earthers, and then with the Bible behind us and all the different things that I use to support the flat earth, the deception is huge. You know, it would have to be. And I think the thing that I know that they're capable of doing it is that there's actually a greater deception going on right now in the world, and it's a financial one that is mainstream news. You can't even argue with me that there's a financial deception, because it's the same as this table in front of me. I know that it exists. It's obvious. And so the shape of the earth would just fall out of that. So all the commentary on mainstream financial news is fake. You know, they're literally just talking in circles. And so if God could do that, of course he could make manuals on things and make a NASA organization and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's like, I'm sure that there's a lot of things in different manuals out there that talk about rotation of the earth and all that. So, you know, I want to get to a test, an actual test with rigor that's agreed on by both sides. And the resistance to that, I think, is further affirmation to me that the earth is indeed flat, as the Bible says. Yeah. Do you want me to email you the link, the Plain Truth? How do you want to do this? I can put the link in the chat, but sometimes people do things with it that are not appropriate. So if you can, if you don't mind going to my channel and going to the About section and clicking on the email inquiries, if you send me an email with your email, I can give you the link to the channel or to this Hangout. Some say they're using the ether instead of satellites. Yeah, if we have a dome and they understand the reflective properties of it, you know, yeah, that could be. If it's predictable. MC Tune, yeah, yeah. So if Plain Truth does that, we can. He seems to be very sure that the mark of the beast, I think he said, has already happened. I'd be curious to know where he's getting that from. It's not even that. It's really, that's also not even a conspiracy theory anymore either, because it's here. You know, it's like I said, for a lot of us, and I'm not the only one, the stuff Russian vids brings out it's not a joke. I see the laughter on the non sequitur as it's an uncomfortable laugh now, because we know that this stuff's true. Like 3 Square Markets chipping their employees to get snacks out of a vending machine, and God making it blatantly obvious, 3 Squared Markets, 33M, 33. Like, I mean, you'd have to be a massive coincidence theorist at this point. You know, not just with that, but just with like all the other stuff, like all the financial commentary is just a joke. Like, no one talks about the money supply and where all the money's going, and just the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer and all that kind of stuff. But the funny thing now too about mainstream is that Jamie Dimon and people like that and others are talking about it. And so it's even in the mainstream, and it's in the mainstream and the lips of people who have benefited from all that. And so, you know, so this to me is just, they're not conspiracy theories anymore. So yeah. Did you email, Plain Truth, did you email me? Okay. I'm just checking my spam. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. My bad. I'll just, yeah, I can post the, I'll post it in the chat. Shivites, is he a Mason? I know that anybody who takes the mark of the beast is on God's left-hand side. Okay, so that should be it. Yeah, so you know, that's where all this like shilling and who's a Mason and all that, I need to even move past that, because to me, anybody who takes the mark is part of God's left-hand side. The Plain Truth.
Hello. What up?
Hey, welcome. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
How are you, dude? I'm good.
I'm good. Just driving, finishing up my night.
Cool. Are you in the United States?
Yeah, I'm in Maryland.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. So what's up, man? What's on your mind? What are your thoughts? The Earth is still flat, though, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
the
good.
Earth is still flat, but I don't believe the Bible is a flat Earth book. And
Okay.
We are not in the end times, but I believe Jesus kept his word and came back just like he said. So I, as a Christian, I think it's important maybe just to kind of give you a little bit of a background for me.
Yeah.
That I grew up in the church, you know, since I was 8, and felt the call to the ministry, and I went to Bible college, and then I also went to grad school to train for the ministry. So I've been a very serious, and I still am a very serious Bible student, and
Cool.
I've changed my mind on a lot of things that I was raised to believe.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, because when Flat Earth came my way, I think that I'm still the fastest convert. That is, it took 30 seconds. So I was listening to a sermon back in 2017, and I had listened to this pastor's sermon a few times, not the same sermon, but I had listened to him, you know, a number of times, and I was really impressed by him, and I'm like, I like this guy, so I'll keep listening to him.
Yeah.
And then one of the episodes that I was listening to, I think he was preaching through Ephesians, but whatever it was in the text, he said, "You guys all know that I'm a flat earther," da, 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 da. And I was just like, "What? Wait, what? What?" Because I had never heard of the flat Earth.
Yeah.
In 2017, right?
Yeah.
So this guy's like, "Yeah, you guys know that I'm a flat earther," da, da. And he basically debunked the Coriolis with the air flights east to west, right?
Yeah.
And I'm driving in my truck, and I'm just looking straight ahead, and it took him all of 30 seconds to say, "If this, then this. If
Mhm.
this, then this." So I'm telling you, like 30 seconds, and I'm looking straight ahead, and
Wow.
I'm thinking that totally makes sense.
Mhm.
That totally makes sense. And I was in. Now, I started looking at stuff, so I started trying to understand it. I didn't try to debunk flat Earth. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Mhm.
I was in
Mhm.
so I wanted to understand it more and more. So then I just started watching everything. And, the rest of the story on Flat Earth Debate. And I've got my channel, and I'm trying to contribute to the story and trying to contribute to truth and all that kind of stuff. So all of that to say, listen. So my name's Travis.
Okay. What's up, man?
And what's your first name? I know that I've seen it.
It's Shirag. It's Shirag. Yeah.
Shirag. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that we've been on panels, and we've kind of gone back and forth every once in a while. But nice to meet you.
Yeah. Thanks for making time.
Yeah, sure. So here's what happened, right? So because I've changed my views on the end times, over 15 years ago.
Oh, wait, Travis, can I ask you a question before, just
Sure.
on the flat Earth piece? Do you believe the Bible is neutral on it, or do you believe it's even like what do you think about its stance on the shape? Like it's just ambiguous, or it's neutral, or
I think
not important?
I think that it presupposes the reality that you and I understand is real. So I believe the Bible would, if it did, speak to flat Earth. I think that it would support a flat Earth mentality. But
I know what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
But okay, so in the same way that I don't believe that Genesis 1 should be used to combat evolution because it's not a scientific text. That's the same thing that I would say about the Bible regarding flat Earth. That's not its point. Its point is not to address the shape of the Earth. But if it did, it would be flat.
Here's what I would say for me, though, for this whole debate is that I actually only really care at this point about the mark of the beast, because if it doesn't come out or it's like not in my lifetime, to me, it's just, I've just been deceived, and, I'm like a vapor that will just go away. But if it does, then I feel like I have the obligation to warn people from a biblical perspective. And then to me, flat Earth, it's kind of, flat Earth comes along for the ride for free, because there's no way, in my opinion, the mark of the beast will happen the way it's prophesied, but the Earth not be what is written, that it's flat. So I get your point, because it can kind of serve either geometry, I guess, depending on how you approach it. But that's where my channel, and looks like more and more, even like AMTV, others are starting to put Mark of the Beast out there. And so again, it's a scary thought for me and a lot of people, even people who warn people about it, that this could literally be happening in the very days that we live in. I mean, it's a sobering thought for sure, but I think it's becoming more and more real for a lot of people, that it's not a conspiracy anymore. It's like a matter of a year or two away at the most.
Well, that's where I have tried to engage Christians along the way, making comments. I'm sure they might feel like I'm trolling to a certain extent, although I don't follow people around. But like in your channel tonight, Voynich at one point said, "Okay, we get it, Travis. We get it." But I was like, "Look, if he keeps saying stuff, I'm gonna rebut. So I don't mind if you say what you think, but I'm going to come back and just repeat. I'm just going to repeat what I'm saying. And if we want to have a discussion, we can have a discussion." So the one thing that I wrestle with, because I'm sure that you do too, when you think about talking about flat Earth or let's say, for instance, you have a conversation with someone who might be a Christian, but they don't really know what you believe and whatnot. Let's say, for instance, about your view on Jesus being black, right?
No, he is black. He is black.
Okay, hold on. All I'm saying is that if you were to talk to a Christian who couldn't see what you see, you might think after you went away from that conversation, okay, look, how could I say what I said a different way so that I could help them see it from a different perspective, right? You're always analyzing a conversation that you had to improve your ability to argue and debate and reason, right?
Yep.
So that's where I'm at in terms of thinking through, okay, I've changed my mind on this particular view of the Bible, and I believe that it's authentic. I believe that it's true, and I care about other people's ability to read the Bible. It's important to me. So I look at it that way. If anybody's open to having a discussion, I'm more than happy. I love talking about the Bible just as much as I love talking about science and the flat earth now, right?
Yeah.
So I see it that way. The one thing that, as I've looked through this discussion, I'm going to say it this way, and I hope that it comes across the way that I'm intending. Okay, so when I talk the way I talk about interpreting the New Testament prophecies with Christians who don't believe what I believe, it's very much like I'm a flat earther talking to a baller.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're going to reject what I'm saying because they've been trained to think a certain way about what the Bible says. So I've had to think, okay, I can't talk about satellites. I can't talk about NASA. I can't talk about these things. So what basic foundational thing do I need to attack that's gonna make this conversation successful and profitable?
Yeah.
So the way that I've said it is that heliocentrism is to science what the end times is to biblical interpretation. That is, people have been trained to think about the world in a heliocentric model.
Yeah.
And they kick against that whenever it's challenged. Christians have been raised to believe in the end times in a certain way. And so when they hear something different, they reject it just like they're a baller. I mean, you can't believe how many conversations. So all of my conversations with ballers I've had with Christians in the past when I deal with the end times. They react in the exact same way.
Yeah.
And they'll go, you know what our joke is about gravity, right? Well, if there's no gravity, how do you explain pizza? Right? There's just like, how do you explain ants? I mean, it's just like, it's so irrelevant that's not the argument. So we're like,
it's their catch-all for everything. Agreed. Yeah.
Right. So when I talk to Christians about rethinking, that's why I named my channel Rethinking Revelation. When I talk to Christians about rethinking this, a lot of them will bring up those points like, well, then what about 666? Well, then what about the mark of the beast? Or what about this?
Yeah.
And I've had to say, okay, those are questions that will get ironed out. I'm not going to be able to iron out those questions for you. But what I can do is try to show you what I think is the foundational issue that we need to address. And if you're willing to talk about that, I think that our conversation can go in a productive way. And by productive, I don't mean that you have to believe what I believe. I just mean that we understand each other.
Yeah. I think just, but like you would, I'm assuming, not take this if it was forced, correct? Like, would you with your life not take this? Hypothetical for now.
Okay, well, I don't believe the mark of the beast is something that's going to be coming our way.
Okay, but let's just say the government forced you to, not even to do the mark of the beast, but like literally get
okay, so
on your arm.
If they were going to force vaccination or a chip under my skin, knowing what I know now, I would I would take a bullet before. So you might as well put a bullet in my head because you're not putting that in me.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that I feel like that's why I think this whole narrative is amazing, and I have to be more humble about it too, is because the most important truth, again, if the Bible ends up being true, at least the way I'm interpreting it, but more and more people are, is that is the mark of the beast, because that's the only one that has consequences. Like, there's no verse that says, if you don't believe Jesus is black, if you don't believe in the flat earth, if you don't believe in this, I'm going to zap you with my angels. Like, the only one that says that and has like one-to-one implications for taking it is the mark of the beast. And so that's where, to me, doctrine is to some extent sort of out the window. To me, even if you don't take it, doesn't necessarily mean we're all buddies with God. It just means that we're a candidate. We're just not the part that God obviously hates, because it's like anybody who does that in the times that we live in now with this much evil, and you don't even need flat earth. Like, flat earth to me is like the cherry on top of the deception. There's a lot of others that, again, are just like out in, you know, plain truth, honestly, to pardon the pun. Like, it's out there. So to me, it's very, very obvious that if it were to happen, God is behind it. And then my channel largely is to like get people to think about the fact that just you wouldn't want to be here anyway. Like, even if the Bible is not even telling us, like, you like, just a person who's principled would not even do that, much less the fact that, or, you know, without even considering the fact that the Bible strongly, you know, urges people to not take it. So to me, again, I have to be more humble that I don't know that it'll even happen or in my lifetime, but just from my calculations and with what's going on in the world, again, largely from a financial perspective, I don't think that it's very far away. You know, it's, yeah, like right around the corner.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you that there could be a governmental coup to perhaps implement something that would seem to correlate to your idea of the mark of the beast. Okay, I'm not going to deny that that's a possible correlation. What I'm going to deny is that the Bible has anything to say about that, and that what the Bible does say about what we call the mark of the beast, that the Bible itself has put the parameters on the meaning and timing of that event. So, yeah. So the thing that, you know, if we were going to, and I mean, I'd love to, you know, carry on a conversation whenever it's possible. I'll try to keep my eye out for your channel, like I said, or, you know, like tonight when I was flipping through YouTube and I saw you were on, I'm like, oh, I'll jump over there. And so here we are, you know. So if you enjoy the demeanor and the way we're going and whatnot, then, you know, we can carry this on whenever it happens to be able to come up. But
no problem at all. I think you know, to me, the thing about the certain deceptions and the encoding that Russian Vids brings out, there's an element of subjectivity even right now in the ball or flat earth, because there isn't yet a conclusive, you know, rigorous thing, although I strongly obviously believe that it's flat. But the mark of the beast to me is incredible prophecy, and it's just wild. The God of the Bible is talking about something happening worldwide, affecting every individual. So it's no hearsay like, oh, I heard this person do this and casted out a spirit from this person, take my word for it, yada, yada, yada. It's like right out in the open, you know. And to me, it's very much, you know, a person, every individual will have to make up their own mind. And then obviously they're influenced by people around them. And I'm just urging people to not do it. You know, it's just a society like that is already predestined to be destroyed and to not sustain itself, because it doesn't value individual freedom, you know. And we know the whole narrative of governments fighting for freedom and all that kind of nonsense is just that. It's nonsense. And so that's just in the guise of what's really happening is they're taking away our freedom by proclaiming that they're trying to spread freedom throughout the world. But what the Bible says is America is really just spreading lies throughout the world. All different things, not just ball earth, a lot of them, financial deception, homosexuality, work, climb the corporate ladder, get as big a house as you can, scrounge to stay as, you know, make as much money as you can. When the reality is the verse that I read in Job, and the point of this whole sermon, for lack of a better word, is that this is hell actually that we're living in. And then God's children, not just what I feel I am, but all of us, we're becoming more and more aware of the fact that this is hell. Like, Zoom Truth is out on the streets talking about flat earth, and people are calling like the counselors on him. It's like he's just outside talking about some thoughts that he has, some questions, and people are doing that more and more. And so that is a hellish society. That's just one example where people are being literally like ridiculed, and we're being made fun of for asking questions and wanting to know the very, very source of the first principles of what we're being told. And that in and of itself to me is hell. So like we're being hellified from all angles, and the mark of the beast, in my opinion, is just the natural final cherry on top. And run away from that cherry. That's what I'm telling people. Like run away, not just from that, but run away from people who are even slightly inclined to take it. Like it's okay. Like just, we don't have to like be friends with everybody. Like if anybody like, and even not to throw Jared on AT2 Productions, like when I was talking to them about this kind of thing, he was like, some of the other people were actually like, I don't think, the government would ever be able to influence people that much. And like, some people were like, I'll just take it just because you don't want me to. And they were making jokes. But like, Jared was actually like, well, there's a practical purpose behind it, maybe. And he was like shilling for it. I was just like, dude, if he was like in my life, in real life, I would avoid that person. Like, and I highly recommend people, it's not rude to like not want to be around atheists and stuff, because to me, atheism is literally the biggest mental retardation that could ever exist, because it's non-causal. It's preposterous. It's arrogant to think that this whole setup was a result of a statistical explosion. And so I think that the mark of the beast to me is one of those litmus tests that will actually, the more we avoid people who are even inclined to that, God will reveal even more and more to us and reassure us that is a wise decision to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of interesting ways that we could have a discussion, because there are so many questions. I'm sure that you've had conversations with people who are ballers, and they ask all these questions. I try to affirm them as much as I can, and maybe you do too, where you'll say, you know what, you are asking all the right questions. All of these questions you're having is a result of cognitive dissonance. That is, what I'm telling you is upsetting your way of thinking, and you've then got questions to say, well, okay, if this isn't what I thought it was, what is it, or what is this, or what does this mean, right? So, one of two things that you brought up that I'll just echo again and say, do all that you want to encourage people not to take whatever the government gives them in terms of whether or not it's a tattoo or a microchip or whatever. Do all you want based on principles of morality and ethics and basic humanitarianism. Just don't use the Bible for it, because the Bible has nothing to say about what you think it says. And the same thing about flat Earth is, go ahead and tell someone the Earth is flat all you want. Just please, please, please don't use the Bible, because that's not what the Bible is saying. Mm-hmm. So both the desires that you have, that is the desire to tell someone that the Earth is flat, and the desire to warn people about what our government wants to do, those two things are good. Mm-hmm. And I would wholeheartedly encourage and stand behind you. But as soon as you said the Bible says, you'd see me step back and walk away because I'm not going to be associated. And someone would say, well, why are you walking away from him? And I would say, because at this point, he and I are on the opposite end of the spectrum. Yeah. We believe things about flat Earth and we believe things about the government, but I don't believe the Bible is the basis for saying what he's saying. I think that we can arrive at saying those things.
Agreed. I think for me, like the levels for me are the financial deception is to me that we're in the end times and the Bible has a narrative for it. That is the main thing that I actually pin my whole majority of my flat Earth belief on. Then my engineering background, the tests that other people are doing, and then just kind of common sense, and then
well, so here's one thing that I'll maybe address. So
yeah.
What you just said about the financials situation and end times begs the question that the end times are what you think they are, right?
Yeah.
So that would be a term that we would have to define. We'll have to sit down and say, okay, before we even have this debate, what do you mean by the end times? And then I'll say X, Y, and Z, and you're like, oh, no, that's not what I mean. And then we'll have to figure out how the conversation is going to go on from there, because I have changed my mind on what the end times is referring to. And so that would be one of those, like I said before, if there was going to be one thing that I would say, okay, look, all of your questions are great, but those are tertiary. And they will find answers, or you will find answers for them.
Yeah.
But you have to actually first start off on the right foot and then see from there where that right step in the right direction will change the way, naturally, it'll change the way, and you'll see the way your mind will change regarding your questions on X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. If we ever have a bit more time where we can reflect and we can go through something more structured, however you want to do it. I think this topic is very, very important. I do have to learn to, just in my own life, even with Flat Earth, to take the foot off the gas and be less like this is me doing this and just being open. But I have a lot of reasons to believe that it could be soon. But to me, I've got this feedback from other people that not just for people in our generation, but in the past, it's very arrogant to say that, because it just assumes that, oh, we're the special ones who our misery is the only one that God cares about. So he's going to put an end to it. So it's all about me. And I get that. And I don't want to be guilty of that or encourage anybody else to go down that road ever. However, we are required to be sort of circumspect and look at what's going on in the seasons and what's going on around us and make reasonable inferences. But if you think that the extrapolation I'm making is too far, I would like to hear that, just as accountability. That's fine. That would be good.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah. But dude, I enjoy, your fervor, man, and all the other people in the Flat Earth side. We all have our differences, and,
Sure,
we don't know about the end times, but the energy, I think you would probably echo this, is that even just now, even when I play golf, Travis, or I'm out and I just look around, I just look at everything so differently. I don't even know how to describe it.
I
totally literally
agree.
Yeah, I look around in a way with a bit more of a keen eye about things. And that alone, even if I ended up being wrong, but obviously I don't think that we are, but I think that it's an incredible truth. It's an incredible thing that, again, it's probably brought a lot of maybe more questions and confusion to a lot of people, but it's brought me a tremendous amount of hope, I would say, that something is architecting this, you, me, and everybody else. But yeah, so, I definitely appreciate those dialogues with other flat earthers on a purely, objective reality around us level, and what those implications are.
Yep.
We're not spinning, man. We're definitely not spinning, bro. That's 100%. I would take that to the bank and back, and then back again.
Yeah.
No, we're not spinning. I sometimes do ask myself, I wonder if you do too, which one, was I more gullible to fall for? Initially, I was the curve, but I realize now the spinning thing to me is how the hell did I ever think that we were spinning? Where?
Well, but see, the whole thing though is unless you're going to go into the fields of that particular science branch, which I didn't. The only time I remember ever being taught about the shape of the world, if I thought back on it, would be when I was very, very young.
Yeah.
So I think that I had all of my Emperor's New Clothes objections, he's naked. Why doesn't he have clothes on? Shh, Johnny, don't. He's got clothes. He has clothes on. He does.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to squint. All of those questions I think that we had when we were in elementary school, that got redirected and disinfoed.
Yeah.
We just assumed the model when we were in high school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if, you know, if we had an interesting teacher who said, you know what, I think we're going to have a debate. Let's have 10 of you argue for flat Earth. You know, if this would have happened 30 years ago, you know,
Yeah.
who the hell knows what would have happened? I don't even know. But my point is that I think I hadn't thought about the shape of the world for so long that
Hmm.
when that pastor simply laid out the logic of traveling over a moving surface, I was just like, that that totally makes sense, you know. And I
Yeah.
was just like, I can't go anywhere. That was like that just was it, man. You know,
Yeah.
that was it.
It's wild, dude, man. Like this entity that we're dealing with, whether the mark of the beast happens or not, but
It's
this
not.
deception.
It's not.
But just to be humble, like the 2% chance that I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime, but just broadly speaking, this deception and this awakening, it's a very peculiar spirit that we're dealing with. And you know, I call my channel The Mind of God, not because I think that I understand it, but I'm fascinated by the fact that God would exist and then he would have a mind to orchestrate all this and to come up and create all of us out of his creativity. To me is like, I mean, it's incredible. It's hard to imagine, but
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, dude, I'll probably wrap this stream up, man. But obviously, I have a feeling our paths will cross, you know, more
Yeah.
than.
Sure.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you jumping on, but yeah,
I
let's.
appreciate you letting me.
No, anytime. I think this topic is extremely important. I think people discussing it in a sober way will help people ultimately make their own decision on whatever they're faced in their life. You know, I think
Yeah.
I'm not overseeing people, and that's another thing that I've had to come to grips with, even with the shape of the earth, is that I'm not responsible for people's reality. You know, if they're not curious about it, like maybe you, me, and the others, you know, that are, that's okay. You know, like, and I've had to realize, especially with Christians too, like I don't have to like shove flat earth or anything down their throat. I just have to tell them what I'm experiencing, what I'm thinking, you know, and if it resonates with people, that's great. And if it doesn't, you know, it's okay, you know. And I think that I'm not saying I'm the best at that, because I find those discussions I can get heated quick, but that's the theory, you know. So
Yeah. So I'm going to put in the chat the episode on my channel with Matt Long.
okay.
My co-host Jonathan Sedlak had a sit down with Matt Long over the issue of end times and flat earth kind of issues. So I'm going to paste that for everybody to check out if you want. And
Yeah.
that'll give you, you know, some more idea, because Jonathan, my co-host, and I both come from the same perspective on this. So he's going to say things that I would say about this.
That's cool, man. I think, you know, my channel is pretty small. I'm extremely thankful for the people that I get to interact with, and whatever frequency we interact with, man, it's great. I will always be transparent, you know, as I mean, as much as reasonable without divulging personal information. But
Yeah,
we keep it 100 here. Like, we don't come with any kind of high and mighty stuff. I think sometimes there's a couple people on here that say things that I challenge them that they're extrapolating too much, and I don't want to be guilty of that myself. So
sure.
yeah, but yeah, man, thanks again for coming by, playing.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for letting me in. Yep.
Yep. Have a great evening, buddy.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.
So guys, I'll probably shut this down. I don't know if you guys have any questions or thoughts or ideas for, you know, stuff to talk about in the future or whatever. Just let me know. I hope that Job 1, 2, and 3, I guess, wasn't confusing. Looks like ETT was busy, but he kind of recommended it, and it's a very, very important topic. And so I think that if you guys ever have, you know, specific topics you want to talk about, or verses and chapters, you know, we can go through it. It's cool. I think more and more, for just a piece of sort of reaffirmation that a lot of people, I think, already know, that just purely by the qualitative aspects of this ball earth, flat earth debate, the earth is flat. You know, it's becoming very, very obvious. And I'm not saying that I'm Albert Einstein or the smartest person, but when I start going down these trails of the proofs, like the sort of, if you go down those avenues with the ballers, there's always some hand waving. There's always some, you're not allowed to look behind door number 3. You can look at the first door, you know, go behind door 1 and, you know, I'll tell you what's behind 2, but you're not allowed to yourself go to door 3. There's all that happening. And so it's not a coincidence that none of the ball earthers talk about mainstream financial deception. It's not a coincidence that many of them are atheists, and I'm not trying to be rude, but these are all not coincidences. You know, like we don't have to be coincidence theorists anymore. We don't have to bow down to the God of atheism, because that God is retarded. That's the dumbest God. That's the dumbest ideology that has ever been infused on earth, is that God doesn't exist. And we're here just as like basically bacteria that's gone like and spawned other bacteria. And we're just all that. Like that's madness. I believed it myself. That's and I believed it probably more than most people, honestly. I've just been a very passive Christian throughout my life, and not necessarily like seeking evil and all that, but just never really coming to a strong reality that the earth that we're on right now is suspended in the middle of air because God is doing it. You know, it's hard to believe, but if God were to do it, he would make something complex, like all of us. And so, you know, I will keep trying to share, you know, my views on the Bible in a very, very honest way, even if that they're incorrect. I think it's good for me personally to get these thoughts out there, because it sort of holds myself accountable if I'm ever, you know, in a public setting, and to behave in a certain way. And I think that even if we have a relatively small community here on these live streams and other places, but we reaffirm to one another that even if we don't agree on everything, but we reaffirm to one another certain principles and virtues that are good, you know, it's a good environment to be in. Like, people that come to my channel and the things that we talk about, we're going to talk about things that are real. We're going to talk about things, we're going to be transparent. I won't sugarcoat anything going on in my life. I mean, I'm very open about, you know, what I'm feeling, and I resonate a lot with what I read today in Job. So, you know, I appreciate ETT directing me and us to that book, because to me, it speaks directly to the times that we're living in now. And then we're going to have people that are close to us that are going to tell us, curse God, you know, but they're actually going to say, curse God and stay alive. When what we don't want to do in these days is curse God and stay alive. We want to praise God and be in the spirit world, and may he receive us, you know, and may he redeem our experiences and make them into something more. And then may he allow us to see more and more of him and enjoy him. You know, that's it. That's all we can ask for. If there's an entity that made this, we just ask him to allow us to continue existing, and then to continue appreciating him, you know, and learning about him and worshiping him in whatever way that he allows us. So, ETT, man, you came right at the end. That's too bad, bro. But we'll this won't be the last one. You know, if the mark of the beast does not come on Monday or this week, you know, I'll try and do it next weekend. But no, it's good to go to the movies, man. And I know you do a lot of videos, and it's good to unwind. Like, I was playing golf earlier today, and, you know, staring out on the horizon and admiring our flat stationary earth. And you know, I'm trying to learn to like kind of chill out a little bit, to not take everything so seriously. But bro, if you don't mind, you know, if you watch the live stream back, or you have any comments, if you leave them down below, if there were certain things that you specifically saw in Job 1, 2, or 3, because I skimmed through 1 and 2, but then read 3. If there are insights that you were wanting to share, if you just leave them in a comment, or you know, bring it out next weekend or whatever, you know, that's cool. But I think it's a great book to go through for people who are going through things that they feel kind of overwhelmed, and just know that somebody like Job, who God even described as perfect, went through tremendous agony and still managed to worship God. you know, that's an amazing thing. And I'm not saying it's easy, but, you know, we can just remind one another that that's always a worthwhile thing to do. Yeah, Zoom, don't worry, bro. Trust me, man. I hope YouTube's alive when that comes out, because I think everybody will be massively live streaming simultaneously and shut down all of YouTube, because we're going to like just be comparing notes and wondering like, wow, like in my mind, I'll be totally honest, as much as I preach the mark of the beast and the end times, and ETT does that as well, and we all do it in different ways, it's still overwhelming. Like it's still amazing, even knowing flat earth. Like for me, like with 98.64% certainty that God exists, it's just really difficult to wrap my head around that an entity will create an earth, have the creativity to create all these people, the complexity of the human body, and manage all these storylines and all the deception and all the good, the bad, and the ugly, that there is some entity that actually is that brilliant. It's very, very hard for me to believe, you know, but, you know, we should just keep reaffirming to one another that that is indeed the case. All of this struggles, all these struggles that people go through are not random. You know, they're not. Even if they seem random, they're not. And so we can take comfort in that. Yeah, ATT's like, we live in a fairy tale movie. It seems impossible, the world we live in. Or as I say, this is the scariest movie ever. Yeah, man, I mean, these days are, I don't know how people do it, man. You know, I think there's a lot of single parents out there. There's a lot of people working multiple jobs. There's a lot of people in debt. They are just surrounded on all sides, you know, and above, because we're not allowed to ask questions above either. So we're kind of like, we're literally being surrounded, and it sounds scary, but to me, very freeing. Just know that God is doing it, and we're allowed to ask God for relief. Like God is not literally just putting us into a pressure cooker and just laughing while we shake around violently. It's okay, and I think it's reasonable and wise to negotiate with God, and ask for mercy. And even more virtuous is we ask for mercy for somebody else. Okay, so the date when the stars lined up and the stars birth and others. The date when the stars lined up. No, I don't know about that. Zoom, dude, I wish, like, man, I literally wish I could go back through my life and own a telescope and look at what's going on in the sky. Dude, I know nothing about the stars and like anything, man. Like just with flat earth, I started taking pictures of the moon and the sun and the sky at the same time. And just on the way to work a couple of days ago, I looked to my right and there was the sun. I looked to my left, there's the moon in the morning. And part of the moon was not fully illuminated. And I'm like, man, like only now do I start thinking about this stuff. And I'm like, if I would have thought about this years ago, I might not have been a flat earther, but I was like, I would have been slightly more knowledgeable about things. But no, man, if you remember what that is, or if you post a video on that, let me know. Yeah, Zoom, good to see you, man. Always good to have you around, man. So you're inspiring all of us, really, man, to go out and talk to people on the streets. And I have signs made up, and I'll do a video on that to show you what they are. They're very simple, but you know, you guys doing that type of flat smacking, talking to people, sharing your questions and all that, it's a powerful thing, man. Like it's hard to believe that those conversations are making a difference, maybe, but they're incredible. It's big. I get creeped out when I look at the moon now after discovering Effie. Yeah, like Mies Kang. Dude, I look at it now more like a painting. I wonder if you guys think of it that way. You know, like when you see artwork, or you see like a building or like real estate that's like very finely constructed. I look at things now around us, even the sky, more in that way now. Like it's an output of like somebody's creativeness. And I just like, I'm like, how does somebody think of that? Like, yeah, I'm going to make a moon. It's going to kind of look like this. Looks like it has some craters in it. And I'm going to make a sun, and it's going to fling around above us. in a path. It's just like, it's incredible, man. Like, it's absolutely incredible. And I was even thinking about our blue sky and how, you know, we very much appear that we live in an enclosed system, which I believe we do. And just the vastness and the infinity of space that we're told by the ballers, that doesn't even make logical sense from our viewing, because we can very much see that we're in an enclosed system, you know, just visually. It's finite, you know, and we're actually able to see the bounds that surround us. And so it's an incredible thing, man. I think I don't think it's a truth that anybody can who enters it sincerely, and may we all be one, and may it come from God as a gift. But it's just, you can't shake this off, and I would never want to. And it's an amazing thing. But just hope God doesn't trick us anymore. Like, it's one or two more, and then, but we're done. You know, I don't want him to keep tricking us. I don't want to find out later that we're actually in like another sub reality, and like we didn't know it or something like that. Like, it's, you know, it's a good one. You know, he got us. There's no doubt. You know, give God credit where credit is due. He definitely got us. But, you know, we want him to kind of stop tricking us, and then teach us more about him, and just who he is, you know, and what he likes and what he doesn't like, and what other things he's created, and why he created us. It's actually fairly simple. It's amazing how big the world itself is, with all the mysteries and unexplored lands. Yeah. ETT, man, it's like, if God can create all this, if God can create a Shirag, an ETT, a Zoom Truth, a Realistically Speaking, a Mies Kang, and a Manny, and a Voynich, like what else can God do? Like, what else is he doing right now while we speak? Maybe God even doesn't know. Like, he's obviously like, he has some aspects of us where there's causality, there's a beginning and an end, so to speak. But he's just, there's things, if somebody's infinite, they're able to come up with new things, you know, and just hopefully we're allowed to be a part of it. In many ways, I just feel like all of this now is like us through Flat Earth and other things. We're all just taking a seat at the table, and we're just now aware that we're in his movie. You know, before we were just characters, but now we know that we are actually in his movie, and he's the director. And like, if he can make one this chaotic, what can he do if he flips the switch and just decides to make everything perfect? You know, and he actually gets to decide what perfect is, and it's probably better than anything we could possibly imagine, because our minds have been so corrupted with evil, all of us to some degree or another. So if he opens up the floodgates of perfection and beauty and peace and virtue, like virtues that are consistent with the God of the Bible, it's an amazing thing. You know, then the Bible says in many places, nobody can imagine you know, what God has prepared for those who love him. And so we hope we're in that number. No, it's all cool. HET, it's all good, man. It's good to see you, man. Thanks for popping by. I'm going to shut her down, but, you know, thanks again for everybody for joining. I hope that Job chapter wasn't more confusing than it was anything else. But, you know, just hope everyone's doing well. And, you know, I'll be in touch. And, you know, the earth is flat. Atheism's a joke. And all that. So ETT, I'll post the time a bit early. I just moved it sooner because I was like tired, man. I played golf, and like I was just exhausted, and I don't know how much longer I'll be able to stay awake. But I'll try and be better about posting the time and then committing to it. So, but we'll shoot for Saturday night. That is a link. Yeah, I'll check it out, Zoom. Thanks again, man, for sharing. Yeah, take care, Mies Kang. Good to see you, buddy.